Awesome. Tonight is gonna be awesome. It's gonna be so cool. The show is gonna be awesome. I'm so excited. What is going on, everyone? It is Friday, and we got a special guest coming. He's arriving a little late, but he's gonna make it here tonight. We got Travis Young from JY Power. He's gonna talk about this battery and all kind of products that they got. And if you guys got any questions about electrical power, this is the show to do it. So without further ado, let's kick off this intro, and I'll see you guys in a second. Has entered the building. All right. Here we go. Come on, StreamYard. Come on now. Come on. What's going on, everyone? It is Friday, and this show is gonna be sweet. We got Travis Young from JY Power. Let's give a big, warm welcome. Travis, thank you for joining me tonight, man. Let me check your mic settings. You there, Travis? Uh-oh. Technical difficulties. We got a screen share right now. Oh, this is some behind-the-scene footage of the NXT he's got thrown up here. All right, Travis, you there, buddy?
Am I live?
You are live and you are direct. Thanks for tuning in, man. Appreciate you finally on the show, man. This is awesome.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. Sorry, I sometimes I have to replug in my headset to get it working when I start my computer up.
Oh, it's all good, man. You know, I know how this technology stuff is, and it's a pain in the butt, but once you get it...
Confounded technologies.
Yeah. Hey, so let's just talk about where are you at right now? Are you at SEMA with everybody else down there?
No. So as some people may know, some people may not, JY is actually based out of Las Vegas. So I get to the enjoyment of being at home right now.
Home field
SEMA
advantage.
Yep, SEMA week is not so bad for us anymore. So I only went to SEMA yesterday. So you're able to kind of see everything that you want to see in a day, unless you're here presenting. So, and thankfully this year we're not presenting anything. So we had a couple lucky guys that, lucky for us, wanted to use our products in their booths. So that was really cool.
I seen that. I seen a few builds there. That was with the acrylic and everything, man. They really outshined themselves on those.
Yeah. The Teslas were built by LV Fabricated here in Las Vegas, and then the guys at DB Drive have been working on a build with us over the last year or so, and they just pulled it all together this week too. So that was really cool.
That's awesome.
Chance is asking, how is SEMA this year? I honestly, this felt like a smaller crowd than I've seen before. And
well, it's the year after the whole pandemic, so it's going to die down a little bit, but still.
Yeah, but still a lot of cool cars there. But yeah, I feel like this year everybody was a little worried about like recession woes and stuff like that, so there wasn't as much activity this year. But
right, that's the elephant in the room, is just inflation. It's happening. It's happening.
Mm-hmm. Well, and certain areas are seeing it, certain aren't. We've actually, since we have a new product launch out at this time, obviously, we haven't seen that. Like, we've had a lot better second half of the year than we had first half of the year. So,
wow. Hey, as long as it ain't affecting you, then just keep on rolling. You know what I mean?
Agreed.
So let's talk some lithium. What do you want to talk about first? I know I could sit here and pick your brain for hours, and sure, a lot of these guys here could too. So what would you like to talk about tonight to start off?
Well, I've got the 2K up. This is one of the models that we work for the production of the 2K. And I've got a couple models up. I've got the 2K. I've got the 4K, which I teased last week.
I seen that. I'm like, oh, I should have waited for the bigger one, but that's still...
Well, and so this is actually going to be a dealer-only model. These will only be available to brick-and-mortar stores.
Okay.
They've been asking us for a dealer-only unit. And it's kind of funny that it lands on this, because this is kind of the Group 31 power replacement.
Wow.
It is not a capacity replacement, obviously, because Group 31 is about 110 amp hours. So if you need something that's going to last you a long time while the car's off, this wouldn't be appropriate. But
but for the power, I mean, I don't know. I feel like even this one has a lot of power density close to, like, you know what I mean, for a battery of 4 times its size, 5 times.
So yeah, so this is, as you can kind of see there, I don't know if I zoom in on the number, but edge to edge, this is about 4 inches. So, and it is a square, so it's teeny tiny, and we're talking about 120 amps rated continuous discharge, repeated continuous discharges. If you can double that for 1 minute to 2 minute discharges, and then you got to let it cool down if you're going to hit it that hard. But
right. That's a lot of current continuously in anybody's setup.
Tiny spot, yeah. So realistically, this is your 2,500 watts, kind of the 3,000 watt battery on your stock electrical system.
Right, and I feel like, stock electrical as in stock alternator, no other batteries together, you can have a higher, output from a better alternator, but it just seems like the alternator's doing all the work at that point, to get any more power.
It is, and there's another reason that some people care about, some people don't, but if you notice with the vast majority of high output alternators from pretty much any brand, there's gonna be a small amount of alternator whine that comes with anything that's like a 250, 275, 300 plus. You hear that little kind of
Yeah. I've noticed that ever since I upgraded mine. I thought I did something wrong. I was going to throw in a group isolator or a ground isolator, but I just kind of deal with it, you know? It's nothing bad, but right. That's crazy.
Everybody deals with that. And actually, like most of the street battle guys that do battles up in New York, they turn the trucks off when they do that because of the alternator whine. Like that's just kind of a large mobile battery maintainer, and it'll keep things topped off. But honestly, if you want to drive around in a daily style setup and listen to it a lot, I prefer a stock alternator. You may have charge limitations, but then you pick the kind of battery that's right for that. Like my Toyota charges at 13.8, so NXT is still a viable option, but also what are viable options are like the 5S LTO options. Now you're not going to get as much out of it as you would a 6S, but
right.
If you charge at 13.8, 5S is a really good go-to kind of low power battery. So
now 5S, are you talking, I know Series, 6 Series. Now, are these 3.7, 3.2, 2.4 cells? What are these, the ones you're talking about here?
So
it's just in general.
So I'm talking about right now LTO cells. So if you're going to go grab some Yinlongs or something like that, but Yinlongs don't have a lot of capacity towards the top of their charge range, so they're not really ideal for a 5S, which is why XS Power doesn't really, if you notice, they don't sell any like pre-built Yinlong 5S or even 5S packs. Like they sell a 6 combo pack all the time for the Yinlongs. And that's because they just don't do that well on the top end of the voltage.
The 6S, would that be like a 16.8 top charge voltage or
max charge? But you're going to be able to charge it into the 15s and get 90 to 95% of the capacity out of them. So, and you're going to be able to do that with a lot of batteries. Our capacitor that does not apply to, because there is some electrochemical happening, but a lot of it is static charge that's just kind of helped out with a tiny amount of lithium salt. We're kind of getting into how lithium capacitors are made with that, but
see, you're talking up my tree now, because I did a little bit of research since I got this off you. The hybrid, you're talking hybrid electro type electricity, like the chemical, and then the static electricity, and that's the hybrid, and that's what this is what you're selling now, and that 4K that you were just showing us.
Yep.
So what makes you go down that route? I understand, because it's like the best of both worlds in a sense, but what made you guys go down that route?
So one of the biggest things that we have always been kind of one of the leaders of up until recently, and it's kind of a tie now, but power density, and because there have been batteries that you could discharge more out of, but you did that out of a larger space. Our green 80s and 73s, you could kind of fit those wherever you needed to fit them, and they were really popular because of that. So really early on, we realized that power density meant a lot more to our customers than energy density. So we've experimented with high rate LiPo batteries and different LFP batteries, LTO batteries, and we see kind of charge issues with LTO. It doesn't recharge as fast as your 4S packs, because you got 6 cells in series now instead of 4, so there's generally going to be more resistance in an LTO pack than there will be like an LFP pack. And you'll hear guys say, well, I put an LTO battery in my car and it doesn't pull that hard off my alternator. Well, that one that I had in Bully Goat, I had a 90 amp hour Proto one, and it was kind of a medium discharge pack. It wasn't like the Toshiba cells, but it was higher discharge than Yinlong cells. We were doing 15 to 20 C out of them.
Whew.
And that
for the
90,
people in the back, tell them what C rating is.
C is when we're talking about being able to discharge a battery, we talk about discharge and recharge. We talk about it in a C rate. And if I say 20 C, I mean 20 times the capacity. C just stands for capacity, and it's an equation. And then some AGM batteries or really low energy batteries, you'll see C slash or divided by 20, and that's capacity divided by 20. So a lot of AGM batteries are rated at C over 20 ratings. So if it's a 100 amp battery, they put a 5 amp discharge on it, and that's how they arrive at 105 amp hours. 20 hours later, the battery reaches, below 10 volts.
And,
but if
that's the thing why you can't compare lithium amp hours with AGM. You just can't.
Well, and you can, but we have to keep rate in mind. And when I'm looking at a discharge chart, I'm not looking at one discharge. I'm generally looking at a 1C rate, a 3C rate, a 5C rate, a 10C rate, whatever it goes up to. And there's increments going up to it, and you see it curve off and fall off. Let me see if I can find a good example of this real quick.
Awesome. I believe the JY40s, you have those rated at a 5C because that's 200 amp continuous at 40 amp hours capacity. Is that right?
That's the low end recommended. So that's your get my best cycle life out of. Oh. But if you want to get the most power out of it and sacrifice some life, you can let the voltage fall a little bit farther and about double the amount of rate that you pull out of the battery.
Wow, so kind of really 400 and you'll be okay. You're just doing damage over time, that's all.
Yeah. Yep.
Wow. So I was really playing it safe running two of those on just one KXA 2400.
Yes, absolutely. So I want...
Yeah, as soon as you pull something up, I'll throw it up for the guys here. I appreciate everyone tuning in tonight, man. This. If you guys got any lithium questions, this is the guy to ask. I'm always trying to, I think you could do that, or that might work. I don't know. Let me ask someone that knows. This is the guy. Here, we got a question here already from El Fuego. I have a 125 amp TDK DC power supply for my test bench. Can I use the NXT2KF directly in line to help out when testing large amps? This is the question I asked you.
So you can. 125 amps is on the high side because I'll skip what I'm doing now and pull up this. So here we have, and I just haven't made this public yet. I need to make it bigger. How do I make it? Can you zoom in on my screen?
That's about as big as I can make it right there. Man.
Let me zoom in. So I guess I'll just kind of go down the list here. So we have nominal capacity farads. It's about 2200. I know we call it a 2KF, but that's just kind of because 2200 farad, 2.2K doesn't roll off the tongue quite as well.
Right.
and this can be achieved at a 5C rate. Now this, I may actually drop that note off of there because, and I just had a dealer pop up and ask us this last week. This is a sorely misunderstood thing. As we draw more and more and more off of battery, capacitor, whatever, we're going to see a small amount of fading in how much energy we actually get back.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yep. So when you see a capacity rating and a rate next to it, that's the rate at which they tested the capacity at. So anything above that, you may get a little less than, and anything below that, you may get a little more than.
Wow.
Yep.
Well, it's good to give like a rounded number rather than, overrate something.
Yep. And this was a misunderstood with the HP because that is rated at a 2C rate, which for an LFP battery, most of them are rated at 0.5C or 1C. So being able to meet capacity at a 2C rate is actually really, really good. And we actually tested that up to 7C that we were seeing rated capacity. Above
Wow.
7C, we'd start to see some fading in there. Yeah.
Right,
But
because you're pulling a lot of current. I know a lot.
Yeah.
I just learned a little bit from vape batteries. You know, every battery is
Yep.
designed in a different way for more capacity or more discharge, and there's pros and cons, and they roll off. It's just like speaker enclosures. You
Yep.
know, it all goes hand in hand.
And it looks like a crossover setting even when you're looking at the slope of the crossover setting, like there's trade-offs. So,
Wow, that's crazy. Hey, more you know.
So, and then we come in at 1.3 pounds. This height, these are the reasons why I haven't released this yet. I need to double check these to actual production, but we've got about 3.3 inches by 4.4 inches by 2.75 inches. It's something that literally fits in the palm of your hand. The ACIR, which is basically the impedance of it in an AC circuit, which is how we generally rate batteries. I know we run them in a DC circuit, but we're rated in the ACIR, and that's about 5.5 milliohms. That is really, really, really impressive, because if we take into account that this is about a 4 amp hour battery, even though it's a capacitor, we can kind of look at, you know, if we put an amp hour tester on it, that's what we're going to get out of it. So with that, the HP40 is about a 1.25 milliohm battery, if I remember off the top of my head.
So that's very, very low resistance. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, and that is 10 times the capacity, and the resistance and capacity kind of go hand in hand. So if we made this, if we link up 10 of these, this will actually be less than half of the resistance of an HP40, which is why we're able to draw more power out of it also.
Right. I know. I was kind of doing a little bit of math. I'm like, for the amount of these NXTs that you could put together and fill the same amount of area as a JY HP40, you would get way more potential discharge, you know, continuous compared to that alone. I remember talking to you a little bit about this at Slamology. I'm glad we're here today.
You can fit about 12 of the 2Ks in the space of a 40.
Wow.
And you would be able to draw about 600 amps at 13.5, whereas the HP40, you're going to draw 400 to 450 at 12.0. So it's about a 50%
Huge difference.
bump. Yeah.
Yeah. Especially when you're talking voltage on your amp, how much power you're seeing out of your amp too, because your voltage is better.
Yep. Yeah, because a lot of the times, like back in the day, you'd see that you'd have a 60 amp draw on something, and you would assume that would be at 12 volts. So you just kind of would say that's about 600 watts. Well, no, because our average voltage is, you know, in between 13.5 and 14. So we actually see about 800 watts out of the amplifier. And a lot of people actually pulse over that. The test that I put these through is way more strenuous than anybody's going to do. So we actually put it on a load tester, and we drain it completely to 8 volts.
Woo,
and then we recharge it back to 16.8 at its full rated.
Wow.
And we do that for about an hour. And it can't go over its maximum rated temperature while starting at 85 degrees.
Wow.
So, and we actually have about a 40-degree window still at 85 degrees, which is needed because
when you're outside in the heat, just ambience. Yes.
Some
already
people's
starting
cars
higher.
can getting into the 130s. So we do need that 40-degree kind of delta there to be comfortable with people running our products everywhere and not having to be conscious as much about the temperature. And the crazy part is I still don't rate these for underhood use. I will not make an underhood battery. It's a sore point. I even am going to be moving my stock battery in back. Now I've upgraded it to an excess power HEM because for starting my car,
you need that deep crank. Yeah.
And I'm not going to say they're cheap, but it's better than an energy, kind of a low energy. You kind of have to have an in-between cell, and realistically, we're going to use this car to show off NXTs. So I don't want some other lithium battery kind of in the mix doing any help here, because most people aren't going to have
Right.
Yep.
Right.
So,
And, that's the thing where, a lot of people, they want to, well, obviously you shouldn't mix chemistries, and, they're using their lithium to start their car in the back. But then, like you said, there's not much capacitance in lithium to start with, and especially these by themselves. I mean, unless you got a lot of them, and then you have some capacitance. But just like we were saying, every battery's made for a specific job, and you almost want a starting battery to start your car. I don't know. I know you can start it with just lithium. I've done it. I have an AGM up in front of mine, but I have an isolator in between, just so that I have that starting and just the whole charging problem that I had too. Because I didn't run a dedicated wire from the alternator to the battery in the rear and then back from the rear to the front of the car. The alternator was getting tricked. So I just threw an AGM in there, fixed it.
Yep. Well, and man, new cars are so hard to work on. Like my daily's a 2019, and it's not fun to work in. Like, doing little things takes a long time because of how much goes into taking body panels off and making sure you're not kind of messing up any of their miles of wiring in it.
Oh, I know. It's insane. When I did the Honda Pilot, I know it's only 11, but man, I was like, I have never done anything like this before, especially with integrating and just, I was like, man, I'm used to just throwing an amp, running some wires, calling it a day. And it's just like with these newer cars, it was a pain in the butt, the ANC, all that stuff.
I was really glad that I did not have to do anything other than help troubleshoot and provide batteries for the Tesla build. Because I'm happy to come kind of like poke my nose in things and be like, hey, this is what I would try and do. But
exactly.
The guys at LV Fab, man, hats off to them, because the amount of wires, and of course there's a lot of wires in a Tesla, like, don't get me wrong, but to put this in context, the brain of the car is liquid cooled.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
There's radiator pipes running to the brain that is underneath the passenger's footwell there. We have.
I know they have heaters for the batteries, right?
Mm-hmm.
Something like that.
Yeah, the liquid cooling system has a dual purpose. It's kind of a temperature maintainer more than it is a cooler or a heater, but it's such a large liquid reservoir that like a little CPU isn't gonna heat it up or cool it down. You know what I mean?
Right. Right. That's crazy. Now with the Tesla build, how hard was that integrating and just throwing a system in there? How are the guys struggling with that? Anything?
It's kind of a nightmare. Yeah, it's kind of a nightmare. There's 22 speakers in the Plaid. So
wow.
Yeah.
Good luck on DSP in that thing.
Yeah, so like honestly at that point the DSP is more treated as kind of a glorified crossover point in EQ, because you can't time align stuff and do all of that when there's a ton of other speakers. And we were even going to have like Drew Jones take a shot at it until I heard this, like with a plan of attack. So I mean, I have different thoughts on this than they do. I say disconnect every one of the 22 speakers, and we put 6 speakers up front. And if you really want to do a little bit of rear fill, do a little bit of rear fill, and then she's got 4 8s in back that actually like those. They get quite a bit of volume out of those 4 8s. So.
Right, you don't need 22 speakers unless they're all on your doors and you're a 160 plus demo build. Like there's just I don't see the point.
Yeah, yeah, and even for a lot of people, like my current daily, I've got, now don't get me wrong, this is a fairly expensive 2-way set, but I just have a 2-way in my doors, and I'm gonna bump up to 3-way, but I've been waiting for the JP77 to come out for since Slam. And now it's here, so I can start changing everything back up. But yeah,
I feel like that 77 is the perfect amp because it's going to cover any kind of mids and highs of amplification that you'd want, and it's going to power 9 chance out of 10, the average to above average daily build. You know, what's a 2,000 RMS on the sub, and then a couple hundred watts on each channel for the 4 channel. Like that's insane in one board.
120 at 4, or 120 by 6 at 4.
Yeah, 6,
I didn't even look at the 2. I didn't look at the 2 ohm rating, but
still, you can have a complete 3-way up front on both sides. Like that's beautiful.
Or what a lot of people would probably like to do, because they don't want to do the fab work for the 3-way, do your 2-way nice component set up front, and then do your backdoor speakers, because a lot of people still want something in the back doors.
Right.
So I thought that was pretty cool. There's some flexibility there. I like how the RCAs plug in. Like you plug into the RCAs and then plug a special connector into the amp, because there's not enough space with all the crossovers.
I seen that someone was complaining about it, but I'm like, you know how many RCA spots there would be for that amplifier? 8 or more. That's insane.
I'm a fan of it. I like it, and I'm gonna implement that well. It's a big amp. Like, it's already kind of a lot to deal with, but what you're fitting into all that spot, like, I'm pretty happy. I'm looking forward to it. I have a JP95 in there now on a Hutchison 12, and I think I might put 3 of the Hutchison 12s in. It's either that or doing 2 of the 15s on that, so we'll see.
I like the Hutchison subs. I mean, I heard them at Slam right beside your kicker cube and everything, and I seen he had some new subs coming out. How do those sound? Is that what you have?
They are, yeah. I have the new Origin 12, and it is phenomenal. Now, don't get me wrong. It's I think they're on sale right now for 300-ish to the upper 300s. I actually bought mine full price. I just went on the website and bought it from him. Just kind of like, you will surprise me by just showing up and buying things.
Yeah.
But I saw it. I really liked kind of the overall idea. It only weighs like 25 or 26 pounds.
Wow, that's all that Neo. That's it.
Yeah.
That's why it's light.
As we've kind of talked about before, I am really partial to like the Kicker Solo X, the DDZ4 that I ran, the compact Neos that I've ran, because we built daily compact Neos, and I've always liked a higher motor force sub. Now you got to build the right box for it, but when you build the right box, you just get a really nice sound out of higher motor force subwoofers with a nice light suspension. And that's what Nick's kind of done here.
Wow.
And he's got it on he says it's a new kind of Captain. And I don't know, because I've never really sent that much power to it, because even though I have it on a JP95, it still acts like a high power Neo where it has a lot of rise. And I like that because it means I can beat on it for longer before it gets warm. Yeah.
I mean, that's crazy. When you say Captain, that reminds me of JLW7s, because I think they use those type of coils. And, it sounds like a kicker
Qs.
sub.
Yeah, so did the Qs in the Cube. The
L7 Qs had Captain coils, and I didn't even know this. Well, I'm slacking.
And, man, and we actually told them, we were like, hey, if you switch from Captain to aluminum, you guys will gain. And they're like, we tested that. I was like, you tested that with cone vents on. Like, we've blocked off the cone vents and already saw a big gain there. And I was like, go back and test with aluminum now. And well, yeah, of course aluminum's going to conduct heat out. So that was kind of a lesson learned on their end. But that I think you were there when we shot the one coil through the cone, weren't you?
I think so. I remember you having electrical issues year 2, but I don't remember the cone launching, because whenever you were playing it, you were giving it to Beans the first year I heard it.
Yeah, we didn't launch a cone, and this actually may have been the first showing that we had with it, and we had an amp bad. That was actually the only bad amp that we had the entire time. Wow. But a coil ended up, we hit a low note, and a coil just decided it was no longer going to be a part of the former and shot through the cone. Like, you couldn't even tell. Like, the cone just cracked and let the coil through and then closed back up. But
Well, I mean,
yeah,
you guys had so many woofers just like on that one side, 20 on each chamber on each side, and one just happens to be a little bit, weak. It's just, you got all those woofers just fire and that becomes a port. And that's why that's insane, man. That build, I was, I love that build. I was like, man, it's so cool that, it has kicker subs in it. And that's when I got to meet you, and everything kind of, it was just awesome, man. And I know you had some issues with it, and I know you're working on something for it now with something different. I can't wait to hear that, man, and see that at Slam whenever that happens to be. And Baba, thank you for the super chat, man. Appreciate you so much.
I was working on this the other night. I haven't made any changes to it yet, but it's the old cube design.
Ooh, let me throw this up for the guys.
And I think we actually ended up, we went a lot heavier on the steel with this. The steel on the sides, actually, you can only fit a 2x4 in between them. So the steel on the sides is doubled up from this in both ways. So let me see if I can pull that up with Mike. Facebook. Yeah, this was the original design. It's like 88 cubes into 180 cubes, and the walls come to there. The original design, I actually had them going farther forward, but then I realized I actually needed more port area, so we tried to pull everything back a little bit, and so it just became like this base of speakers, and that's about it. So, and we also have steel bracing running up and down the sides there.
That's beautiful.
Conversation with the original builder. So I designed all of it, but Mike Blanchfield, who I've worked with on a couple projects over the last decade, him and his family built it. So his wife helped out, his daughter helped out. Mike's a pretty good friend and does a lot of really cool shit when he feels like it. He's not somebody that people can like kind of hit up to get work done, but he's built a lot of really cool stuff through the years. Yeah. Special
occasions. That's how I build boxes too. Special occasions. Goodness gracious. Oh man, that's awesome though. I'm happy you still had these 3D renders of the cube, man. This is awesome. When I went down to Kicker down in August and I seen it sitting there, I was like, oh, this is sad.
Yeah, I know. So I think I'm actually gonna get Frank White to bring it back. Hopefully like February.
Nice.
So I want to be able to get it started then, but this was it in process.
Oh, so, wow. Okay.
Yeah. We had, if I remember right, we ended up being at like 1,700 to 1,800 feet of steel.
Whoo! I mean, steel is the way to go now. You see all these builds, man. It's just to get that strength.
Put this in context, though. This was like, what, 2017-ish? 2018, maybe? I can't remember. But, like, steel was 70 cents a foot back then. Not what it is now. Yeah.
Well, at least it's mostly built now, right? So it's worth more.
Yes. No. And what's crazy is the box. So we backfilled everything with either 2x4s or 2x10s. The sides and the back got the most reinforcement. So that was all 2x4s to backfill all that. But you can see we stacked the steel instead of stitching it in together.
That's almost better just because you're not trying to make the strength the welds. It's just...
Well, it increases your cross-sectional thickness, which is what you're kind of looking for here. So instead of having a 1.5 inch, we have a 3-inch steel cross-section that's backfilled with 2x4s. So, and those are 1.25 inches, or 1.5 inches by 12 gauge. So they're about 1/8 of an inch thick. So
that's awesome, man. I can't wait for that.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
This was a lot of fun, but that box also had 40 sheets of wood in it to finish off everything. So the empty enclosure weight is 5,000 something pounds.
Holy! I mean, it makes sense. It makes sense. It's a lot of wood, even though it's metal and it's lighter than wood, I guess, per how much. I don't know. I just feel like it's.
Oh yeah, we would have needed a lot more wood than that. We probably would have used 60 to 100 sheets of wood had we not actually used the steel. So eventually we'll probably backfill with like some 4-pound foam. That was always a goal to help kind of the sides not rattle as much, but I just never got around to it. Anything on the cube takes 40 times longer. So
it's a big build, man. It ain't your
Yep.
average. It's not. It really isn't.
Yep.
I don't know. I've never heard anything louder. I mean, maybe frequency wise, but it was like a one-note wonder. Did like a 70, and it was too loud.
Well, and
yours.
that always kind of depends on what you consider loud, because we've heard a lot of that. Like, there's definitely Allen Halls and RPs out there, and Joe Prices, and those are loud. Those are bone-crushingly loud, and like there is no detracting what those people can do on the meter in multiple spots in those vehicles.
Right.
But the way like we got noise complaints at Icky Boom from like 5.5 to 6 miles away. Like people could clearly hear the vocals, and like so depending on what your version of loud is, it is one of the loudest vehicles out there. So
I feel like it was the loudest, like park and pound, demo vehicle. I just feel like the sound traveled further than more of the even builds that might be louder on the meter inside the car than you. Yours is louder farther away.
Yep. And like even like Greg Corbin works for me. Greg does like low 80s in a vehicle that he sometimes drives to work. Like,
wow.
It's mind-boggling. Like I have to give Greg that on the glass or in the kick, wherever he ends up doing it, Greg is the loudest daily driving available vehicle in the entire world, no holds barred. Like nobody comes even within 10 decibels of him. So yeah, that's kind of nutty,
I don't know how he drives it. I mean, to have a system that's that loud, to be daily, and not things break all the times, like windshields and everything else, and dashboards.
Stuff does break all the time, but it's steel cabin. It is just like it's very similar to how like Carlos and all the other guys are inside, except he's got like the seatbelt buckle or whatever like that he has to have, and then the front window actually unbolts. So there's an extreme windshield inside the front window.
Damn.
Yeah. So he unbolts it, and then he just looks out through the window.
That's legal, I guess.
I mean, here in Nevada it is. Yes.
Yeah. PA, no way.
Yeah. Iowa
awesome.
would have been a little weird about it because of the steel being there, but there's ways that you could do it and at least not get caught. Whether or not it's legal, but there's ways to not get caught. You could do a big single pane and not actually impede your view that much. So,
right. And I mean, how are you dailying it? Do you just drive to Walmart, or do you drive an hour to work?
And so Greg's driven it to Reno, I think, which is like 7 hours away. So, and we might pull a stunt next year and like take it to Slam or something.
Oh,
so.
Snap.
It'll take a little bit longer because it's just in case anything breaks. But
right.
It uses very common older military axles, so the parts are kind of readily available, and they're very simple and easy to like change. So when his turbo took a shit right before Slam, and then we got that fixed up. And then his rear end took shit on him. So he had to go get another rear end. And both of those things happened and got replaced with him in time to have a couple days to like test the system a little bit. And like, we weren't rushing or pushing anything. And yeah, it went pretty well.
I mean, that's basehead problem 101. We're paying attention to the system, forgetting to lube our axles. And next thing you know, things are breaking.
Yep.
But hey.
Especially when you have 500-pound tires.
Right, you got excessive weight. I'm happy I wound up and I got lowering springs just because
Nice.
they're, it helps with the added weight that I threw in there eventually. I'm like, well, there we go. That's good.
Well,
It's already
and
tucking.
one thing that we tested back in the day, lowering your vehicle actually makes it louder outside the vehicle. So
Wait, what makes it louder outside the vehicle?
lowering it, getting
What?
closer to the ground, you reflect
know-
sound off the ground. So
That makes sense. It makes
Yeah.
sense. It's like boundary loading. Just,
Yep.
your whole car is a passive radiator. Your whole
exactly.
That's crazy. I
Yep.
mean, it makes sense, but my car is not good at park and pound. Just the orientation that it is. The box is bigger than the car, but it used to be pretty decent. I don't know. It just maybe a lowered SUV in my future sounds like a plan. I love park and pound stuff.
Hey, I'll tell you what has kind of caught my eye on all the SEMA stuff. Have you seen the new Ford Maverick?
No. Wait, you know
It-
what? I've seen a few trucks, but I don't think so.
So it's all right. To get it out of the way, we've kind of not had cheap trucks in a long time, right?
Right. 50 grand
yeah.
and up. Yeah.
Yep. So this is a hybrid unibody truck that starts at $21,000.
What? That's cheap.
Yes.
That's cheap.
Yeah. So it's kind of bringing back the old four-cylinder truck thing, and people are already chopping them up, dropping them, and doing really cool stuff with them.
Wow.
So it's a little mini truck that gets 40 miles a gallon. It seems like the perfect little project thing, and it's 4 doors, so you've got plenty of room. I think it has a 1,500 or 2,000 pound payload capacity, so you have plenty of room and weight limit to work with.
Throw your little go-kart in the back or something,
Or 415s, like a blow through.
Yeah. Yeah, you'll be good. You'll be good. That's super cheap for a truck. I mean, you think 21,000? That's usually 12 years old, and someone's selling it on Facebook.
Yeah.
It's just...
No, it looks like a pretty cool little truck, and we may be looking at one for a project car. So
Nice. I mean, that'll be perfect, and it's just something new, and maybe some other people will get some ideas to do it down the road too. Just like how you're giving me that idea. It's like, one build at a time, though. One build at a time. Kicker Car Guy, thank you for tuning in, man. Why is it so hard to find any vids or pics of Kicker display at SEMA? I know they have them up on the Facebook page. There's nothing on YouTube really other than shorts. Trav, you didn't get the chance to go actually.
I didn't get a chance to actually see Kicker's booth much. I was a little bit busy for this SEMA, so I walked by a couple times though and waved. I got to see Bill, so
nice. That's all that counts. Just
yeah.
Hey, Bill. I can't. I know I was gonna go, but it's like already, with Slamology going down to Stillwater. Too big. That's good for 1 year.
And it can be a major expense to come out here.
Flights, hotel, rental car. It adds up.
I don't blame you, and if it wasn't all company write-offs, we definitely wouldn't be able to afford to go to as many shows as we go to. So
I'm gonna have to start doing that for this stuff. Oh yeah, it was towards the YouTube. Going to Slamology. Got to, man. Dub Team, thank you for the super chat. Deviant for life is the man. 14.4 talk for the win. We love you, Andy. Don't stop killing it, bro. Thank you so much. You'll hear a lot of 14.4 volt stuff from these guys, Trav.
Ooh.
Heck yeah, man.
Yeah. So.
I know. I wanted to ask you more about the battery. So I know you had that chart up on there, and I know we'll have that on the website eventually, right?
Yes.
For guys to be able to look at and go over, because I remember the JY being right on there, the JY40, and so this is 60 amp continuous, 120 amp max kind of thing.
Yeah, and that max is actually for a long duration. So you can do that for 2 minutes. That isn't like a short pulse.
Okay.
So we actually pretty heavily underrate these, and it's because of the thermal performance. When we start discharging in 120 amps on that pack, it's gonna get hot. And we're not going to be able to keep that 40-degree window that we want to keep between you and your car.
Right.
So
Right.
And that's gonna end up like you can pulse into that kind of, not as much as you want, but use them in the wattage range that we tell you to use them in, and it's gonna work really well. If you're burping off of them, I'm kind of the like, if you're out there straight competing, I'm gonna kind of argue that unless you're sponsored by us, that these probably aren't the best thing for you to use. And check out Caps or check out CMAX, or do your research into, like, if you're competing, don't expect any company to be able to hand you a built product and that be the best thing for your exact vehicle. So
Right, and you kind of want to have more than you should if you're competing for, like, park and pound or like dueling demos, or not dueling demos, but subsonic suicide stuff that's like 2-3 minutes long, plus you're demoing after for hours and hours.
Yeah.
You want to have more electrical than you need. And that's why I grabbed 2 JY40s in the beginning, because I'm like, with this whole lithium thing, it's not like AGM, it's not quite as safe, but knowing that lithium iron phosphate is really safe compared to titanate and all the other ones.
Titanates are good too. Titanates
Really?
are LTO. Yes, they are an LTO product, and that's on the same level, if not a little bit better than LFP for safety. That does not mean that they cannot start on fire. So there have been audio lithium batteries, not Titanates to my knowledge, other brands of batteries.
So it's not so much the chemistry for the thermal run or whatever you want to call it. It's more just how they're putting together, over discharging, bad BMS or lack thereof.
How they're rating them, how they're implementing them, and how they tell people to use them. XS has come a long way in the last few years when they launched the Titans and everything, on how they rate them and how clearly they state what not to do in their manual. With this sheet, we have a sheet just like this for the HP that, if you exceed this, you will reduce cycle life. On low operating temperature here, we actually have on that, and this one it's actually -22.
Wow.
But apply a low load to kind of self-heat the unit beforehand. And then we've got certain things like the discharge cutoff. We prefer you keep it above 10, but 8 is the cutoff, and reducing that has the chance of killing a cell. That being said, we brought all the NXTs back from 0.5 volts a cell or so.
Woo.
So
yeah, and there's 6 cells in here.
4.
Or
there's
4.
8 in total. There's 8 in total.
8 in total, 4 series, 2 parallel.
Yep, exactly.
Okay. Okay. I mean, it makes sense. Just looking at it, it's just 1, 2, 3, 4, and then by 2, and then I'm guessing the 4K you guys got coming out just going to be double this, pretty much 4 and 4.
Yep, and since we're not having to put 2 balancers in it, the case doesn't cost us twice as much, and all these kind of things combined, that it's going to be a little bit less dollar per watt than so it's going to be a little bit better value.
Right. Usually when you get more, you pay less, kind of like buying in bulk in a way. I know whenever I was thinking, I'm like, man, I don't know if I could run like 10 of these in a car, but if I had...
It starts to add up, yeah.
Right. Now, I had a question, because I was watching you on, I think it was Base Wars, and you were talking a little bit about it with resistance and charging and stuff like that. You were saying that the lowest resistant battery is going to be charged first?
Yeah. Like, that is kind of the thing that a lot of people... And it isn't so much first. First is probably... I did say that. But first is probably the wrong word for that, technically.
Okay.
The lowest resistance is going to get the most amperage.
Okay.
They will all come up as a whole, but the most amperage is going to dump into the lowest resistance point.
Makes sense, just like a woofer. You have a 2 ohm woofer and a 4 ohm woofer, on 2 different channels.
You can both up, yeah.
Yep.
The 2 ohm woofer is going to move more than the 4.
Right.
Yep.
Right. Wow. Okay, so that makes sense. I was trying to think I'm like, so wait, if I put this in front of this, because I was thinking, because people keep asking me, hey, can I put one of these in front of my lithium? And I'm like, well, I don't think so. I think you need more. It's not just a capacitor. It's kind of both. You need
Yeah. So with a traditional capacitor, you kind of are almost unlimited for what most people's intents and purposes are. A capacitor bank has realistically about a 3000F 6-pack. Has about a 700 amp max continuous like charge discharge. Now you're going to be discharging it in 2 or 3 seconds, and you're going to be recharging it in 2 and 3 seconds. And it is going to get hot doing that. But most people, they need power above 8 volts for more than a couple seconds. So the usable rate of a bank like that is about 70 amps for 20 seconds, which is about 1,000 watts. So that's pretty good because that amounts to about 0.8 amp hours. That's what is in the entire thing. So an NXT comes in. It is 2,000 farads, and it is able to supply 60 amps for about 45 seconds. So it is giving you about 10 amps less, about 20% less power in the overall scheme of things. Actually, it's not quite. It's about 100 watts less. I always round up for caps, but but we get that duration for twice as long, or a little bit over twice as long. So they have a lot better value proposition for most people when they come in at the cost of what you would have to pay to build your own cap bank. Because a bank of caps runs about $300. If you want a case
weird
one,
how
about $550.
It's weird how when you run caps, you know, you look at the farad or whatever, and then when you put them at a higher voltage, you're just dividing your capacitance, and it's crazy how that works out. And it's just like, I like the idea with this battery because you do get the benefit of both. You get that quicker discharge, lower resistance, just inherently more potential power. I don't even know how to, and it's just more capacity.
It's a lot safer than traditional lithium batteries too, because there's so much less lithium content. So, and we're talking about there's 5 to 10% of the overall lithium content of like one of our power batteries, not even an energy battery.
Wow.
So, yeah, like.
So what's it made of? Just the carbon of pretty much the.
It's actually an EDLC. It's like a Maxwell wound inside of a 21700, except one side of that they've put a little bit of lithium salt into. So there is a little bit of ionic reaction happening there. But
that's crazy.
It's such a small amount. Yeah. So like we resistance weld these together, and in that process of learning, what we're supposed to have all the welder settings at and everything, we blew holes in some cells, which with lithium batteries doing that can become you venting the cell and it being a bad time. So we pop holes in about 12 cells and never got a reaction.
I've heard of those tests where you puncture, and there's like 4 or 5 different tests for batteries.
Yep.
I mean, it makes sense, because you see what people stab in the what are the green ones? Man, yes.
Yep.
And CMAX,
and those
they just blow up.
So, and here's the thing: you kind of have to meet a few thresholds. So one of them that you kind of got to keep an eye on. Sometimes people stab CMAX and it doesn't do anything. And sometimes people stab CMAX and it takes off like a firework, like literally spinning and shooting up in the air like a firework. So what voltage it was charged to, how much potential energy is stored in there. But there's 2 sides to a potential energy coin, and that is temperature, which is stored potential energy, or voltage. And both of those are analogous to pressure.
Okay. So that's probably fully charged?
Exactly. If you fully charge it and it's either a hotter day out or you've been running the cell and testing on it. So the hotter you get a cell and the higher voltage that it goes up, the more likely that when it becomes punctured, enough energy is going to flow through to actually cause a thermal runaway.
Wow. And that's what we see, the horror stories we see where people are just overdriving it, getting the cells too hot, and the voltage is fine because they got 4 alternators up front. Next thing you know, the whole thing goes.
Well,
or their alternator...
Voltage usually gets better as they get hotter. So that levels off around 110 to 120 on a lot of batteries, but your voltage gets better as your battery heats up most of the time.
Is that because the resistance goes up and there's less
resistance?
Less resistance.
Less resistance. So as we cool the battery gets more resistant because think about ice. Like ions flow better through most liquids than they do solids.
Right.
So as it gets colder, the liquid becomes more and more and more dense. So it becomes harder and harder and harder for ions to travel through. And that's why a lot of lithium batteries have a minimum charge temperature.
Wow.
Yep.
I mean, that makes sense. That's one thing that I've read on just, generic lithium and different types of batteries and stuff, with just weather, it's like, oh, you're not supposed to use lithium and below certain temperature, or you have to turn your headlights on to warm up the cells before you try to crank it over. And good luck if you live in Canada.
Honestly, like starting the car a lot of the time is enough to excite the electrolyte enough to be able to start taking a charge. But when we talk to people, we're like, why are you playing your system in negative 20-degree weather? Like, what is wrong with you?
The penguins love it. Listen, they love it.
Don't get me wrong. I lived in Iowa for 20 years, man. But it also causes your parts to condensate. Not just the battery, but like you're gonna get condensation on your subwoofers. You're gonna get condensation on your amps, and one or two times that may not be that big of a deal, but if you're repetitively doing that, it's gonna eat away at the PCB. That's gonna eat away at the chrome finish, and so everybody kind of do what you want with your stuff. I'm not telling you not to play your system, but know that there's consequences for kind of doing that, and they add up over time. So
right, I know. Every time I would do that snow shake video, like the two I did, I was always kind of like weirded out about it because I've always kind of just done it, but it's like I'm going full tilt as soon as I start, and I've always kind of worried about it. At least I have kicker, so it's at least in a good chance to survive.
It's well coated. It's all well coated, but like you also have a chance of shocking your spider because a lot of spiders these days have a lot of resin kind of baked into them. And as that resin gets colder, it gets harder, and that can cause radial tearing. Like if you've ever pulled a woofer out and seen kind of cuts going from the outside of the woofer in, that's a lot of the times because it's either been overextended or it's been played really hard in the cold, and that resin cracked, and it'll crack right through the fabric layer too.
That makes sense, because it's just, I mean, playing 13 hertz with mine probably doesn't help any, but I could see where that's happening. Yeah. I actually have my buddy Seth because he repaired yours and mine, put new tinsel leads on it because this is the one you sent me, and he threw some, I think it was E6000 or something like that, over top of the spider to give it some more strength and stuff. So. I mean, it makes sense. That's the
crazy.
Best
thing you kind of can do when repairing those. There may be some spray-on phenolic resin that I don't know about, or there may be something better, but that's a good idea. Like, and those old tinsel leads are hard to work with, so.
Yeah, it didn't want to go that full throw. The sub could keep going, the tinsel leads couldn't, but he's got them real nice where it's just perfect amount of loop where it's not pulling, it's not, and you heard it. That's with the new leads this year, and didn't break any at Slamology, so just happy. But you know what? I'm retiring as soon as that 18 is ready, man. It's done.
Absolutely, man. I would too. Like, absolutely. I still have one of the broken recones. I'm keeping that for just similar reasons for memento stuff. So
absolutely, you got to. You got to. I still got this one. This one's blown. I could fix it, but it's just no. That's the first one I blew. Hold on to it.
So we've shown. I don't know if anybody on the stream saw it, but like we've got these. These all have copper inputs.
Oh yeah, let me pull this up for you.
So this
is the NXT2 right here.
Yep, this is what everybody's seen. This is what's on the inside. Now, I think yours are from Down for Sound. So you have the in-house made versions of these. Because I actually did the first run. I did it in a way that said, hey, I want to be able to buy all of the busing parts in America in case shit hits the fan like it has.
Right.
I've been burned twice in the last 2 years on things either taking way too long or factories shutting down or whatever. And it's cost us a lot of money. So I basically said, I need to be able to take this into my own hands if I have to. So yours have the first version of the busing that if we ever have to fall back on, we can. But it takes us so long to build those in-house. It's so painful, and I hate it. Everybody hates it. It's gross. But
I believe it.
These we actually have made in China. I tried getting them made here. There's nowhere in America that will make these for any reasonable price or any price realistically. We've got a nickel tab that welds to the cell, and that is welded to a 0.2 millimeter thick copper sheet.
Wow.
And those copper sheets can carry an immense amount of current because they're only about an inch apart. Like from about tab to tab is about an inch.
That's pretty thick, and at least they're copper and not nickel. Yeah.
Yep.
Good stuff.
So we've got about a little bit over a quarter of an inch that is all just copper transfer, and then the nickel is on top of the copper. So
Okay.
this is a really short distance. It's only about 1 millimeter, 1.5 millimeters.
Yeah,
from the
short
top of that
distance
to
ain't
there.
gonna make a big difference, right?
And that just makes it really easy to weld together. So we manually weld these together right now, and we build about 25 a day.
Wow.
Yep. So, and we're gonna be the 4Ks, unless you're buying them from a brick and mortar dealer, they won't be available online. So the 4K is going to come out in between 500 and 600. So it is going to be a little bit of a cost saving, so it's not going to quite hit 600. But depending on your area, dealers are going to charge for these kind of what they're going to charge. We have a recommended minimum advertised price of that upper 500 range. So
Still, I mean, you're getting, double the capacitance. You don't have to put 4 in a row. You could just put 2. You're saving yourself in the long run for bigger builds. It's that middle of the road. I think this is a perfect, in between what you guys already have with the JY40 and now the NX2, and then you'll have the NX4. I'm guessing that's what you're going to call it.
Yep.
And I mean, it's the future. This type of battery.
So the HP's been discontinued until we finalize. So this is one of the 2 options. So we have 2 options that we're going to fall on right now. We're co-developing some sodium ion stuff with another company. I don't know exactly when that's going to be ready. I have a small time window, but if I can't get it in that time window, we'll probably launch this guy. And this guy is the UHP 30.
What is that?
So yeah, I'll
looking.
change the terminal designs a little bit.
No, it's cool. It's unique. It's wow.
This is about 7 inches long.
Okay.
And about 5 inches tall.
Wow. So about half the 40. Half of the JY40.
About half the 40, and it's about 30 amp hours, and that is about 650 amps continuous.
What?
Yeah.
Wait, what kind of lithium is in there again, and what kind of?
That's an LFP. That is a Gen 3 LFP battery, and it is
Wait.
an all metal case. It's still. We are utilizing some steel in spots. On the side, upper and bottom panels are going to be steel. The side panels will be steel. These are the aluminum compression. So if I take off the steel end cap, you can actually see that we have a thick aluminum profile here that will be compressing all of those packs together.
Wow. Well, you need that compression too.
Yep. So this is the containment. This is my second version of the HP. This is the ultra high power instead of the high power. But the steel end cap, between the steel end caps and this, I think this will contain cells even better than the version 1.
Wow.
So
You sold me on the 600 amp 650 continuous. I'm like, wow, smaller capacity, higher discharge, higher, I guess, C rate, if you want to call it that.
Yeah.
You know, and now the price point, would it be relatively like the JY40 at $899? I think that's what it was.
It is going to cost more. It is going to cost more, but you're getting more watts per dollar. You're getting a lot more watts per dollar.
More energy density, more, exactly.
So the HP, when it was discontinued, was $999. We saw a lot of price increases over the 2-year lifespan that we ran it. And we started at $899 and it crept up to $999.
Right. Well, yeah, things happen, you know.
Yeah, we launched it in before COVID hit, and everybody saw what happened to prices. So a 10%-ish bump wasn't a bad deal on that.
No, it's not. It's not a big difference.
In
no.
$1,250 to $1,300, so it's not a lot more, but you get about 50% more power out of it, and it's considerably smaller. So.
And now, when you say LFP, that's not lithium iron phosphate, is that? Or what? That's I thought lithium iron phosphate was LiPo4, or is that just a different way of saying it?
Shorter way of saying it. Yeah, you can say LiPo4, but LFP is its 3-letter acronym. Yeah, or like Tesla uses NCA, which is nickel, cobalt, aluminum, or the CMAXs are NMC, nickel, manganese, cobalt.
Oh wow!
So it's a chemical abbreviation. Yeah.
Abbreviation of an abbreviation. It's like calling me Ann instead of Andy. It's already short for Andrew.
LiPo4 isn't abbreviated. Those are just the full chemical symbols.
Okay.
LiFeP, phosphorus, oxygen. So we have lithium, we have iron, we have phosphorus, and then we have oxygen. It is literally the chemical. It is the chemical.
So that's the long name. That's the long name of it. Okay. Gotcha. So that's cool. It's the same chemistry, just more energy density. Now, I know it's probably, that's what you want to keep between your guys at company, but is it just more technology, or are you just learning more about how to make these batteries stronger?
So we're working with new vendors, and those new vendors have come out with new chemistries. And what we do is we look for the best chemistries that work for our applications. So new technologies, like the NXT is a new technology. Lithium ion capacitors are a novel new thing. Gen 3 LFP is an improvement on older LFP technologies. Like when we came out, we were kind of working with a 7 to kind of 10C variants. Over the years, we moved from 7C to 10C, and then we moved from 10C to about 12.5C with the HP series. And a lot of that was improving our implementation to actually make the battery perform better. And now what we're doing with this new gen, we're mixing in a better implementation yet again that is a more refined version of the implementation to help keep that cost down so it doesn't creep up more. And we're combining in a more powerful cell. So it's a lot of different things. And what if we're able to get our sodium stuff close enough, we really think sodium's going to be the next really big thing in car audio. There's even the chance that it eclipses the NXTs.
Wow. Just because of, polishing.
What it's capable of.
Yeah. I mean, right. And that's what people were talking about with the hybrids of just, you're not getting all the energy density or whatever you want to call it, potential power of a capacitor, but you're not getting all the capacity of a regular lithium. And you're kind of in the middle of the road of things.
And that works really well for that 1500 to 2K range. Like, we are going to do bigger NXTs, and they do cost scale better into 3K setups and 5K setups. And we're going to do a limited run of some even higher power NXTs that, honestly, a lot of people are probably going to buy them either direct through our competition kind of team, or they're going to be getting them buddy through a dealership that they know. those are going to be really cool. I think I've mentioned those to you in private.
Yes.
The bigger cell NXTs can be pretty wild, but sodium ion, we're talking about a little 5 amp hour cell that standalone has a 2000 watt rating and is probably the least flammable thing in your entire house. Wow. So, but that's is also going to take up, that's also going to take up a lot more space. So there's going to be a trade-off there, but I think we're going to be able to bring costs down. We're going to be able to bring safety up and trade that for a little bit of space. And that's super cool. I think that is where things are going to land. People want more watts for less dollars, and they'll trade a little bit of space for that.
Absolutely, man. I really like the idea because, even with this stock electrical system, you throw 1,000 watt RMS amp in there. That's all you need back there, and you don't need to mix chemistries, really. Worry about mixing chemistries because it works in such a wide range. And this wouldn't pull on anything, right? Because it's a higher resting voltage. Would it rest with the lead acid if you happen to do that?
So if you have any kind of draw or anything, the sodium ion is actually the same exact voltage as like AGM. So it depends on exactly what vendor you're working with, but the one that we're trying to work with, it's actually going to have the same amount of cells as an AGM battery. Like they're 1.8-ish volt cells.
Wow. So if you run an AGM up front, you're good. You're good.
So
I noticed that even with the lithium iron phosphate and the JY40 and a brand new AGM battery, they sit relatively close.
See, that's the thing, is there's only about a half a volt difference, and I'm not telling you that over the course of weeks and months that your AGM isn't going to pull your LFP battery down.
It will. Yeah, a little bit.
What is going to be, that's a half a volt difference, and a half a volt difference with the resistance there, we're talking milliwatts of power that's going to be transferred between them. Now, if you have an old beat up battery that's resting at 12, that's a volt and a half difference. That's a much bigger difference in power, and there is going to be a transfer of power there.
Right. So if you have a brand new AGM, you should be okay, but that's what you should be doing anyway, not mixing old and new batteries technically, just in general, just so you don't have any of that. But is it really that important? If you drive your car every day, I don't see the need, but if it's sitting in a garage, then maybe you should have it on a trickle charger or disconnect
it. I do not approve of putting battery chargers on things you're walking away from long periods of time. And I don't care what kind of battery it is. I don't care if it's an AGM battery or whatever. There's the possibility that you will start a fire no matter the chemistry of that battery or capacitor or whatever.
I've always felt safe with your batteries, though. That's the main reason I went with you guys first instead of building my own. And I know you can save a little bit of money by building your own, and that's why I wanted to throw up this comment here about the headway cells. And I know they're on battery backup. I like going or battery hookup.
So we recommend the guys at Battery Hookup. We 100% believe in recycling batteries. But you also have to understand a lot of people are not willing to, we were just in, a Tesla Plaid this weekend. Somebody that's buying a car like that is never going to consider about buying used cells from Headway or from Battery Hookup and putting their own battery together. You know what I mean?
Right.
This is a very easy to slap in, and Andy knows that if he has a problem with it, I'm more likely to replace it with a couple questions asked to try to make sure that it doesn't happen again than I am to be like, well, sorry, bro, you're shit out of luck, buy some more.
Right.
And that doesn't hold a lot of value to some people because if they understand their products well and you've done your research, can you build a battery for cheaper than I'm willing to sell you a battery through my distributor who sells it to the dealer who installs it and then, sells it to you? Abso-freaking-lutely you can. But that's going to take your time to sit down and read about it, to learn about it, to build it and do those things. And everybody's time's worth money. You know what I mean? So,
amen. You know, that's why I was going to originally go with this battery hookup option. You know, the 48 amp hour headways, DIY, hook up your own BMS. You know, I know enough about it, but it's like I've never done it, and time to put that together, make sure everything's working, or
well,
you know, I can
just
buy one.
The NXT will easily outlast a used headlight bank.
You know, right, and
it
it's
will outlast the used headway bank. So now, if we argue
exactly.
LFP to LFP, you could say, hey, well, even if I get half the usage out, we're still comparing a 2,000 cycle to like 1,000 cycles. You could make that argument. What you can't make that argument against is the NXT is rated at 25,000 cycles, and that's under a 7 to 10 C discharge. So
that's pretty, yeah, right. So that's 7 to 10 times 4, and that's what, 28 to, you know, the 60 amp whatever. And that's a lot of cycles that people don't understand, because a lot of lead acid batteries and AGM are what, 600 to 1,000 depending, and then the 40 that you have, the JY40, was what, 3,000 or so?
3,000. Yep.
So, you know, 25,000, and that's probably a lot to do with the chemistry of this new type of battery, where it's just going to last.
It's mostly a capacitor. So, I mean, if you rate it how a lot of lithium batteries are rated, it's actually about a 50,000 cycle. But that doesn't account for, you know, heat buildup and stuff like that. So at the rate that we expect people to run it at, it's a 25,000 cycle thing.
It's like the miles rating on your tires. You're never going to hit 60,000 miles. They're going to be done around 2030. Yep. But you know,
now does everybody care that your battery's going to last you 10 years? No. Hey, you may not even be doing 10 years from now. So maybe that doesn't hold as much value for you as it does someone else. But you know, we're not anti-DIY by any means. We're actually getting ready to come out with some Yinlong spacers. It's because there's no spacers for Yinlongs, and everybody asks us like, what should I do with my Yinlongs? Like, why do Yinlongs break so much?
Rattle, vibration.
And people tip them on their side, so it's all everything's hanging on the studs, and those studs have a 7 Newton meter rating printed on them. So if you can only torque it to 7 Newton meters, why do you think you can bounce the cells on their sides going down the road? You know?
Can't. No, just very fragile, very fragile. Speaking of that, I know you guys do a lot of that 3D printing stuff with the wire combs you got coming out, or you already have out.
They're out. We've sold about 50,000 wire combs the first half of this year, and then we kind of pulled the plug on pushing them, because whenever we call out and kind of like make calls for action, a lot of people see them and note them. They haven't really taken root yet as like, oh yeah, I got to go grab my combs too. So we're still kind of pushing that, and we're probably just going to continue to kind of silly blast like giveaways and stuff like that to just kind of keep them in everybody's mind and everything like that. So, but it's a cheap way to put your system together, and if you know you're going to use a bunch of them, you can buy bags of 50 and bags of 100 from Down for Sound for a pretty good discount too.
Oh yeah.
You know, the more you buy, we do, because then I don't have to sit here and bag bags of 3 or bags of 10, or you know, we do the bags 100 by weight, so you're probably going to get like a couple extra most of the time.
Right.
But yeah, when we're able to just like weigh out a certain amount and throw it in a big bag, slap a label on it, that's a lot easier.
I think it's a position in our hobby that needs, you know, it's better than just zip ties. Let's put it that way. It's better than just zip ties. You got it in there, clicks in there. You can route your wires in all different kind of ways, and you see it with all the guys. You know, they're pretty much making artwork out of just wires. You know, just how they're running. And it has its place, man. I think it's awesome. I bought a few for the amp dyno so I can put them along the wall. You handed me a few at Slam. I got those still in my car, Cookie Monster, and they work great, man. They're awesome. I think they're cool.
Yeah, we had really good success with those, and dealers liked them. But like I said, it's kind of, you think it's really cool, and then it's there, and then like you just kind of forget about them. So we need to spice those up. Maybe I'll do some like illuminated ones. I'll figure out a way to illuminate them or something like that. So
Like glow in the dark or something crazy. I don't know.
We do have glow in the dark resins available. So, stuff like that sounding crazy is an option. So
No.
Yep.
People will buy it just to buy it. Be like, oh yeah,
Yep.
man, check this out. Put a light on it real quick. Boom, look at that.
crazy enough, we've had people collect NXTs already. Like they don't plan on using them. They just went on a shelf to be collected. So that kind of blew me away. Yeah. So it made me feel some kind of way inside.
Dude, I mean, honestly, there's other lithium brands out there and stuff, and I mean, not too many other than I feel like Excess Power is the more, like you Google it, that's going to be the brand you see, and stuff. But I just feel like you guys are a very big portion of what we do, the 1%ers of car audio, and it's like the safe feeling I get from buying Kicker products, I know that I'm going to get with JY. It's not going to blow up on me. Everything's going to run good. And like you said, you guys torture test things with like wide ranges. So just in case you have a bad situation or, scenario, it's still not going to maybe blow up. It's going to be okay. That's the best feeling ever.
Oh. Well, and we put a lot of thought into our designs. They're not simple things, and I mean the LIC development was like 5.5 years. Went through 3 different vendors before we landed on the right vendor, in 3 different countries. So we actually started with a Korean company that was using actually like Russian IP. And then we moved to a Japanese company, got really close to launching that, and then had to pull back because the cost on the cells never scaled down. And that's actually what we used to weld the current NXTs together, is the prototypes from those.
Wow.
We use those as a resistive bank. We dump that power for our welder. So yeah, the old NXTs live on to create new ones. It was kind of wild that stuff like that happened. So, but yeah, we pulse 500 amps constantly all day long out of that bank. Wow.
Now, I was going to ask you, what is the BMS rating? Like, what's the max discharge before it cuts it off for these NXTs?
There is only a balancer, and actually that kind of blows people away to find out that there's even a balancer in them because of how small they are. But that uses the same balancing system as the HP.
Okay.
So it is that aggressive that it is going to pull up to 1.2 amps per line to shuttle energy around, and it is an active balancer. So unless there is an issue, it's not going to do anything.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
So what's the most you could discharge out of it, say in a random situation without it blowing up, melting,
I mean, if you want to pulse burp 200 to 220 amps out of it, you could probably stay above 12 for short periods of time for that.
Wow.
I would stick to the ratings though, like the 120. If you want to do a 30-second 120 run, you can totally do that, especially if you're juicing it to like 16 volts. It has a max voltage of 16.8, so if your equipment can take it, you can drive it up there.
That's crazy. I mean, my power supply can do it. I don't know if my amps will,
So I actually would have loved to use the terminology Batcap, but Batcap is a brand of AGM batteries, and they actually recently, last year, launched a different form of hybrid capacitors that are graphene capacitors. And so, no, they are not the same. We use different technologies. Those are...
What were Batcaps? I've heard of those.
So Batcap, they had some lithium options kind of before anybody else, but they never told anybody that they were lithium.
Wow. That's crazy.
So I'll leave all that can of worms that it is, but some competitors had some really cool kind of homemade batteries before anybody was doing that back in the day. And I'm not going to name drop anybody or what the models were, any of that. I'm going to leave that can of worms alone.
Don't worry, no one's watching anyway.
The back caps that everybody themselves have used, were kind of your traditional AGM batteries. I think they were what's called mixed hot, where they had a little bit more aggressive acid in them, so they had better discharge rates.
Okay.
But then more recently, they brought some graphene capacitors in, which graphene right now, getting that in any kind of good quality is kind of a hit or miss. So that doesn't degrade how these perform at all. But they had a pretty cool offering that could do about 200 amps for I think $500. But there's still not a lot of kind of power density there, and the power density available for that is not comparable to the NXTs. So the NXTs are a lower resistance. They're going to be able to provide power higher, more stably. So even though they're a lot smaller, so graphene is not where it needs to be for graphene batteries, graphene capacitors to be a really good product yet. So they kind of jumped the gun a little bit, in my opinion. So, and we haven't really seen it take off. So,
hey, what you got is something special, man. You know, I did a little bit of research on my own too. You know, I got to, and what was this technology came about? At least they brought it out to some kind of expo around 2010. This hybrid system that you got going on here.
Yep.
That's crazy.
And it literally is a drop-in replacement. So it's easy to manufacture for either battery manufacturers or capacitor manufacturers. Because actually building a lithium battery is very similar to building an EDLC capacitor. It's what we're putting on the anodes and what the anodes and cathodes are made of. So when we start looking at sprinkling a little bit of lithium salt into the anode or the cathode of an EDLC, we see a lot of capacity kind of rise from that. And our original cells were actually about the same size as CMAX cells, the ones from Japan. Wow. Those were the first functional prototypes that we got, but those were only 1.35 amp hours. And so that's obviously a lot bigger than the 21700 we use now. But I could pull 200 amps out of that constant, not 60. You know what I mean?
Wow.
So it was over 100 C. It was like 120 or 130 C constant discharge rating.
But you didn't have much capacity. You were more
that
towards
didn't last for very long.
Capacitor level type battery.
It was closer to a capacitor than it was towards a battery. Now, flip side of that is the NXT is kind of an energy LIC, where it's rated at 30 C continuous. We rated at 15 C long-term continuous. And instead of a Tesla's 21700 that they use for their energy packs, it's just shy of 5 amp hours, where this 21700 comes in closer to 2. So it is a lot less energy than even kind of a middle of the line 5 to 7 C cell. But you get a lot more performance out of it too.
Wow. And that's just like how the batteries work. You either get a little bit more capacitance, less discharge, C rating, all that stuff. And it's something you got to look into with whatever you're trying to use a battery for.
Yes.
And that's why, like the simple questions I get, it's like, hey, can I use this gel or this deep cycle? Like, yeah, it'll work. It's better than having no battery back there, but it's really not going to do what you, it's just,
you're going to get about 1 at really best case 2 C at 12 flat. And that's not going to get rid of the light dimming that most people want to do. And that's why the NXT becomes that kind of special product, because it operates at 13.5 above, and there's a noticeable difference in your lights dimming and all of that when your car is staying a volt and a half higher.
I know it's crazy. Even with lights, it depends what kind of headlights you have. of how much dimming it's going to be doing. Because, I swear, even in my Eclipse, my light's still dim and my voltage is saying 14.4. Unless my voltmeters are not that accurate, I'm like,
they may not be quick enough. They may not be quick enough. So
it's probably like that little, just enough to get that light to just. It's not terrible, trust me. It's not like back in 2011 when I first had it, and my lights I couldn't even see down the road. It's just full tilt.
I would bet that even with your KXA, I bet you could throw a single NXT in there and see that stop. It would be a cool test to try out.
I could try it, absolutely. Now you think it would be okay just to try it, to just see if that, obviously not full tilt boogie playing 30 hertz and just,
Honestly, how big's your alternator?
I got a 320, so, it probably sees at idle, probably realistically 250, 270. It does a lot of the work.
Leave it at idle, and I would see how it does. Yeah.
Okay.
And just keep a clamp on it. You have a clamp?
Yep.
Keep a clamp
DC
on it.
Clamp, everything.
And if you see it get over like 150 amps going back into the NXT, then just kind of cut things off, because you're gonna start to get too warm.
Okay, so go easy on the input current. Keep it idle. I think at idle it only does like 70, 80. It's
if it's 70, 80 at idle, go ahead and give her the beans on the output side for a little bit. See how it does. I think you'll be a little surprised. Yeah.
Okay, I will.
It floats down. You'll kind of see the pulses kind of pulse down, but it's a really slow drop down versus. It honestly resembles more like what a CMAX battery does in its slow drift down than it does LFP or CAPS even. It's pretty neat. So, and you'll see what I'm talking about when you get it on the power supply and everything too. So,
absolutely. I know. I can't wait to test this guy out, man. It's going to be a blast with all different things.
Yeah.
It's just exciting learning about different batteries and just like how they charge, like how you're just talking about, how they like roll off and how they charge and stuff like that. It's so interesting to learn this stuff. And to be friends with a guy like you, man, it's awesome. It really is.
Absolutely. I love learning and kind of teaching other people what I've learned, if I've learned it well enough. And batteries just is one of those areas where I can try and help out in most cases. So whether or not people buy our stuff, I'm always happy to try and like take a shot. That does not mean PM me at 2:00 in the morning and expect me to answer and demand things from me. But you'll catch me popping into the forums and just being like, hey, I wouldn't do this, or I would do that, or don't take offense to it. I'm a super critical person. I'm not saying that your battery won't work. I think in ideals and best terms and, in those ways. So take it kind of as just a grain of salt. And if you want to try and improve things, these are ways that, you can put things together in a different way. Absolutely.
You do what you can, with the time you got. You're already running the business, doing everything you're doing. You're telling me you're making these by hand. That's insane. But it's good stuff, man. It really is. Yeah. I'm excited.
So when we get the new CNC welder up,
thank you, Dave, by the way.
We'll do a tour of the shop. So I've been doing little snips on the page of how things are coming together, but it's really going to be December when we were able to start cranking out, because I've ordered an automated CNC welder. So we'll be able to do a week's worth of welding in about 2 hours.
Oh, wow. That'll speed things up a little bit.
Yeah. So, and then we'll really be able to kind of get into the 4Ks and the larger models than those, because there is one for like a 6K-ish model. So
this guy, 4K's out of stock. It's not even up yet.
It ain't even in stock. It's never even been in stock yet. I still have to order
still in the womb.
all the good INI bits. So actually they are designed though. So where's my lid? There we go. So these are, none of these are off the shelf parts, unfortunately, and nothing that I do can be simple. But
no.
This is all. Here's all the steps down here that I took to kind of get through this model, which this is a lot better than the 2K. The 2K, I can scroll on this for like 3 minutes, and that's how many changes have been made. But with this one, it's just a scaled up version of it. I know what I'm going to do. Like, I know I'm going to delete these because I was thinking about doing 3 tie downs with this, but I ended up only going with 2 because if I do a third, then these cells have more connectivity than these outer cells. I'm pointing with my fingers. So these 2 cells, if I did a third one here, they'd be connected here and here, versus these 2 are just connected here. So I dropped the idea of doing the third tie down. So, but that's where all the energy ends up flowing through. And also the bus bars sit on top of these nickel pads, and then they have another pull down on this side. So these are extreme. There's a lot of engineering that goes into these. And even, you know, we do material reduction inside the case.
Oh, to hold them in place. That's beautiful. That's like honeycombed kind of, you know, bracing.
And that keeps the case extremely strong. And it also makes it so that we're not, like, if I add that back in there, the case cost goes up almost 50%. I think it's like 37, 38%, which I round up. But yeah, we do as much material reduction as we can. On these new models, the balancers are going to be in the top instead of the bottom. And that's because when the balancer is working, there's a solid red light on. And that's going to go out usually within a minute or 2. Worst case scenario, 15 minutes. If it hasn't gone out after 15 minutes, give us a call or email or whatever.
Yeah.
If it's blinking, give us a call. That means that a row of cells has died, or it thinks a row of cells has died, like something went wrong with the wire. So, which has happened once to us.
So wait, this is going to have an LCD screen, kind of like the UC30 or UC31?
No. So this is just the balancer inside has LEDs on it, and it's either going to flash or go solid. So you'll just see the cap kind of glow. Oh,
okay. Gotcha.
Yep. So, and a solid glow, no problem. It should go out shortly. A blinking glow means that there is a problem and you need to contact us, and we're most likely going to warranty it out. So,
hey, that's cool though. I mean, at least you got like some kind of indicator light. You know, that's pretty nice.
Yep. So that's going to be something we include on all of our stuff moving forward. So.
Will these NXT2s have them on the next batch, or
they're
just
already
solely
in
on the
there?
Force?
So they're already in yours too.
I didn't even see it light up. I didn't even see it light up.
It won't.
Okay, it won't.
Unless it needs to, it won't. So it more than likely won't ever need to.
Oh,
but,
okay.
Yep. So that's the kind of thing about a balancer is, and that balancer in specific is, if it doesn't sense more than a 0.02 volt imbalance, it's not going to turn on. So, and then it doesn't hit its full 1.2 amps until there's about a 0.07 imbalance. But it's going to draw up to an amp to transfer power from one cell to another.
I mean, that makes sense. You want them balanced, but that's a question I have for you, and I know you'd be the perfect guy to ask. You know, why do you need the cells balanced? Why can't they just be, you know, wired together and they'll equal themselves out? Why do you need a balancer in these?
There's always going to be small manufacturing differences in both how we weld them and how they're made. So the ACIR to the 100th digit is the same, but is it in the 1,000th and the 10,000th difference? Like, so there will be a small difference, and it gets better as we kind of add more in series because we end up summing all of those together. So those all become kind of the same resistance from this way. Oh wait, this way. It's easier if I put the bus bars on there. So this way, they're all summed. But from here to here, we're going to have some minor manufacturing differences. So, and
just
that's
human error. That's pretty much what it comes down to of the design. And that's why they need balance, because of resistance values and stuff.
Yep. Well, and even capacitors call to be like traditional EDLCs. If you're running them how we run them, and even like full cycles are really hell, because one cell is likely to hit its bottom before another, and that's when a big imbalance. Yes, Baba. It is.
I was throwing that up.
Yep.
Yeah, because Troop kept asking about it. I guess Bubba was just informing him.
Yeah, the 4K just had its first teaser last week, so
it's cool to see new products coming out from you guys, man. I always wanted to grab one of your green cases from back in the day. Just never, it was like, oh, I'll just buy an AGM, right? And it's like, looking at it now, I got all these AGMs sitting here doing nothing now. And it's like, I'm good. I'm lithium trained now.
What's crazy is I see the old greens pop up, and there's still a lot of people using them. We sold,
wow,
I think probably 12 to 1,500 of the old green banks.
Wow.
They did really well for us. But the HPs sold a similar amount in a shorter period of time, and we had supply issues on them. Like that's one of the reasons why it's in redevelopment is supply issues.
Wow.
So,
yeah, I mean, just with today's economy, I'm not surprised.
Yeah. So, but with sodium being so close, I don't know if we'll land on this super awesome and amazing UHP.
I know, that's awesome there.
It's just so itty bitty tiny that like I may just even do 100 of them because the tooling cost won't be that much. Like I'll add an extra $100 to each one and say, hey, we're only making 100 of these, and get them if you want them. We may start doing more cool stuff like that because people are kind of asking for it now. So we do have the inkling to do a really big badass NXT that it'd be about a $2,000 NXT at map. But it would be the most power dense battery like out there.
I know it sounds insane from what you're saying.
You can wire zero gauge up to them. Yeah. Realistically, I kind of like to see everything tied into a bus bar. I would prefer you not to stack a bunch of wire connections. If you need to stack one or two, I get it. Realistically, though, what would be perfect if you have some 4 gauge laying around, just a little bit of 4 gauge to a distribution bar, and then that distribution bar splits up with your inputs in out to your amplifiers, and you have got your fuse blocks and everything. So because
it's what I gotta do with mine. I was looking at it, I'm like, how am I gonna have any kind of terminal?
Don't hang it off that.
And right. I'm like, man, I don't know if that's gonna work too well.
I
so
did that intentionally. Like, I don't want you putting a bunch of stress on those. So, and you can kind of see the way here that it's put together. So that terminal it's electrically connected right here, but that is not meant to hold it in. That bolt, if I move this, and then I gotta move this part. Hold on. If I move that and get rid of my outputs, there's a nut underneath there. That is a free standing nut that just kind of sits in there, and that is meant to pinch the copper to the aluminum. So that's where we get our power transfer. But that's not glued in there, and even if I glued it in there, I'm not going to try and rely on that part. When this thing gets hot, all plastic is going to move and kind of shift a little, and we're not going to rely on that. So these are just heavily glued in place. And if you look at this, when these print, they actually print with perforations that lock the glue into the face of the plastic. So, and those print at an angle. So those are actually like anchors into the plastic.
Wow. That's pretty cool.
And you can't do that with traditional injection molding or anything, because I mean that's a freaking
that's a little tiny dot.
yeah. It's like a millimeter. So, but yeah, we perforated all the edges that are glued, and then the top and bottom actually clip on. So these are press fit together. There's a ventilation around the bottom in case any of the cells ever were to bend. That's where pressure would be released at. But also, when we're printing these, we have to relieve pressure on the inside because that becomes a giant suction cup as it's printing. So those vents actually relieve the pressure so they're dual purpose. So like I said, there's so much engineering work that like goes into these.
That's insane. It's really
little
insane.
spots are raised, so we actually trap those parts in. So when Greg's building these, he doesn't have to be exactly specific with how he puts it in there. It pushes itself into place.
Wow. Just like a puzzle piece, you know.
Exactly. Yeah. And then when you bring in the outputs actually will catch here, so they can't move too far forward and short out on it.
Right. You wouldn't want that. Right.
Yep. Well, because, hey, guess what? None of this was there on the V1s, and we ran into like, hey, we got to slow down what we're doing here. So the fastest Greg was able to build the version that you have was about 16 minutes-ish. We could do them in 15 if he was really pushing it.
That's pretty fast, though, to build any kind of battery. You know, man, props.
He pushes these out.
He pushes.
It's about 11 to 12 minutes.
Wow.
It is substantially faster. So,
hey, you got to get them in and get them out, but make sure they're done right. And you guys got a lot of, just practice and learning what works, what doesn't work. When did you start getting into batteries yourself?
A little bit before I started JY. So like I was into car audio beforehand. And I was vaping. So I learned a lot. Like you said, I learned a lot from vaping. But I mean, I started vaping 10 years ago before anybody knew anything.
Same.
So you really had to learn. Like you had to learn Ohm's law. You had to learn all these things, and you had to learn how to test batteries. So when lithium batteries became a thing in car audio, I bought one of the original Juicebox 80s on pre-order, and they were $2,000 on pre-order. And it was a really cool battery. I did break it the first weekend I had it. The terminal design, where it was interlocked into the case, or the lack thereof interlocking into the case, was an issue. And Kevin warrantied it for me though. But what actually made JY happen was I went back to Kevin, and I'm with Twisted at the time, so, and I've done distribution for Sundown, so like I generally don't pay MAP for things, and I buy things in bulk too. So we're a business, and
win-win.
So I go back to him and I'm like, hey, I broke this. Can we warranty it? And he's like, no problem. But I was like, hey, I want to buy 6 more. Can I buy 6 more at like the pre-order price? And he's like, I can't do the pre-order price, but I can give you a discount. And I was like, all right, cool. Like, what is it? Like, I'll order them tonight. And he's like, I'll give you $100 off a piece. And I was like, so you want me to pay $2,900 after I just paid $2,000 and broke it? I'm going to take a look at my other options.
Same.
And one of the other people that was helping me with repping Twisted at the time, I was a formal part of Twisted, and I had somebody helping, and he found those cells on eBay actually, and he's like, they look kind of shitty though, because they're in cardboard wrappers, and we're used to seeing things in plastic wrappers, so we're like, what the hell? Now there's an extremely good legitimate reason to put them in cardboard wrappers, because guess what, when they get super hot, guess what doesn't melt? Cardboard. So there is a really good reason to put your power cells in cardboard wrappers right from the get, because then you don't have to put the plastic stickers on top.
What about spray foam? I've seen spray foam.
So kind of depends on what kind of spray foam. There is fire retardant spray foam out there.
Oh wow.
That being
what was it?
said,
the extreme lithium batteries that were
they used great stuff. That is not fire resistant foam. That is extremely flammable foam. And if one of those batteries ever has an issue, it'll be a really bad deal.
Damn.
I avoid foam as much as possible. There is a small amount of foam in your HP that is used to space the cells out from each other, but it's cut into about 1-inch strips so that the cells can actually breathe in between each other. Because we're trying to dissipate the heat as best we can. Because everybody asks why we didn't come out with a 60 or an 80. Simply because that cell stack gets so dense and so thick that you can't properly cool the cells on the inside compared to the cells on the outside, and the battery ages differently.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's why you went more of this route where they're just kind of separate in a way.
Well, in cylinders, they're going to dissipate heat a lot differently than pouches that are stacked on top of each other will.
Yeah, because the 40 had like bunch of pouches just like stacked, and put in there.
And the UHP will also. You kind of saw that in the UHP, where if I pull, where are you? Not that. There we go. So I even have some spacing in there. I don't have any of the foam drawn in yet, but I do have the cells spaced a small amount.
Oh, I see. Yeah, little sliver there.
Yep, and these are a lot smaller cells. So what I'll do in this case is we will actually thermally isolate, and I've got a pad drawn there. So I'll thermally isolate this cell from the aluminum because I do not want it to cool. I know that sounds backwards, but if this cell's cooled, these cells are all, especially these cells, are going to age faster than these cells. And
Is it because they're going to stay hotter because that one's cooling and not transferring the heat as much?
Yes, the ones that are cooled and are kept cool, because cycling is a major determination of cycling is what heat we're cycling it at. The lower heat we can keep it at, and if we were to kind of run aluminum plates in between all of these and then actively cool those plates, we could do a lot better.
That's crazy.
A lot of people don't like the idea and the cost kind of structure that would come with. It would easily make this a $1,550 to $1,600 battery, easily, and that's still with no full battery management. That's just balancing. Which there's a technical terminology difference between battery management. Battery management means we can shut it down in some way. None of our batteries currently have a way to shut them down.
Okay.
Because that costs a lot.
So BMS, battery management system.
Battery management system. It is a very specific term that means, hey, I'm balancing them, and either through a relay or through a transformer or something, I can shut the power off. I can switch a switch inside of it and shut things down. Yeah.
Are they more used in higher voltage? Because I believe for my moped, my e-bike I got, it's got a BMS in it. It's 48-volt system.
Full cycles. So when we're fully cycling and dropping batteries to 10 volts and then bringing them back up to 16 and then dropping them to 10 and bringing them back to 16, those small differences start showing over time and over those cycles. Whereas if I'm just discharging into the 14s and sometimes into the 13s and I'm popping right back up, there's a lot less drift from cell to cell because we're not doing full cycles and no cell ever runs out before the rest.
That makes sense.
Yeah. So we don't need to as aggressively, but then comes the people like, hey, I left my fucking lights on and my battery's at 8 volts. I'm like, this is a really sketchy situation because now you need to slow charge that back up at the rate at which the balancer can handle an imbalance, which is about 1.2 amps. So I'll generally advise people to bring a battery up to 12 volts flat and then let it rest at that 1.2, 1.5 amps. Let it rest for a couple hours and see if it drains significantly. Because if it does, one of the cell rows is dead and it's transferring power around to bring the cells that are high lower.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I know, because that's what happened with, it wasn't 8 volts, it was 10.8 or 10.5, that limitless lithium I was telling you, that Cyber 12K. I just put a regular charger on it, put it like 2 amps real slow, and it brought it up to around 13.4, and then I put on my regular charger. It charges AGM lithium. It works. And it went okay, and it was sitting all right, but it sits at 13.3. I think it's okay.
It's good. Yep, it's good. So if it were bad, it would want to drop to an interval of 3. So around 10 volts is always sketchy. At 8 volts, I'm way less concerned than I am with 10 or 11 volts. I'm not concerned at all. But if you tell me that your battery's sitting at 10 volts, that's about 9.9 volts, which is the float voltage of 3 banks of cells, meaning one
Half
bank
of
of
it.
cells is dead.
Jeez.
So, and if you try and charge 3 banks of cells up at 14.5 volts, you're probably going to start tanking those cells too. So
Right.
that's why it's always sketchy to kind of revive these. It can be done in a safe manner, but it takes time. Pip and Laswell just revived 2 HP 40s from 3 volts. So
Holy, nothing left.
it took him about a week and a half to do, but he did it. He did it safely. He actually took the packs out of the cases, or popped the cases open. So he
Each
could see the
one
balancer.
individually.
We didn't have to, because they all were in balance, thankfully.
Oh.
But we
Wow.
wanted to make sure they were in balance, like at that
Disconnect
low of a
each
voltage.
one. Check each
There's
one.
no there's no disconnecting, because they're soldered and welded together.
Oh,
under
okay,
there.
okay.
Yeah. So there's no disassembling or repairing or doing any of that. But if there's a small imbalance, he did have a power supply that he could have brought it up to the same voltage as the rest of them. So
I mean, at least he got it back together, back up to. I do that a lot. I like that Limitless and just other batteries that are sitting at like 3 or 4 volts. It's like I can bring it back to life, but sometimes there's some damage there.
The HP 40 can be ran standalone. I do implore you to check your vehicle's idle drain. If you have a lot of idle drain, you want more lithium battery than you think you do. That's the number one thing that kills them, is people leaving stuff on. And like I said, you dropping it down, and the problem is it has enough power at 9 volts to start your car still. But you don't want to start your car with a high output alternator into your dead lithium battery, where there's possibly a row of cells dead. Because if you send 300 amps into 3 banks at 14 volts, you're definitely about to have an issue. Yeah.
Yikes.
Yep. Now,
Yikes.
the case is designed to catch the vast majority of that. But I can only do so much. You know what I mean?
Right,
So
right.
That's why we use LFP. When LFP starts to go a little wild, it gets into the 300, 350 degree range. When CMAX starts to go sideways, it can get into the 700 degree range. So,
Wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy, man. I mean, I don't see it too much on Facebook as much as I used to,
People
See
are
it in the
starting to
lanes.
learn. Yeah, people are starting to learn. CMAXs aren't bad batteries. Like, I don't have a problem with them. Just use them appropriately, build them appropriately. I'm kind of against gigantic banks, because if you do have a problem, you have no way of taking care of it. Which I've even been at fault before, like not acting like I haven't made giant banks of lithium. I think one of the biggest banks that's still ever been out, and we had 1,480 amp hours of lithium, if I remember right.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, that was what was in
That's
the
a lot.
cube. Yeah,
Damn.
it was a $32,000 battery.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah, that's all. No
Damn.
big deal. Yep. And honestly, like, what I'm looking to do when I bring the cube back out, I'm probably gonna do like 50 NXTs and 52Ks or the equivalent in there.
Damn.
It's only gonna have like a 200-ish amp hour, capacity bank. So
Right, but it's going to be able to discharge 50,000 watts, if not more.
Oh Lord. Well, whatever
Give or
15
take.
times 200 is, yeah, that was what I could do continuously. So, but
That's insane.
I don't think we'll really ever see the cube play over 20-ish thousand watts. I think for the power that I have planned, I'll have the ability to throw up about 35K, but I don't think I'm going to. I don't think I'll need to touch anywhere near that. With a couple modifications to the box, staying square or going round, I think we can tickle an 80 with a couple minor modifications. So I do also need to build out the driver door. Like, I don't think I have to put a hump in, but I do have to build out the driver door, because if I try and close that door right now, it's just gonna pop off.
Oh, wow. So you need some kind of boundary loading wall of some sort, guide wall.
No, I need a thicker steel, more steel door.
I need more steel.
Yeah, so what I'll do is I'll do like I did on the other side, except it'll be a second doorway. So there'll be another doorway with probably a 5/8 steel panel. I say panel. That's a bar, whatever. But it'll be a 5/8 thick door, and that door will have its own sealing and latching mechanism, so that the stock door can kind of be there just to keep the weather off of it.
Right. That's just I see so many people that do build and stuff, and it's like, I don't feel comfortable building something that big just because there's so much that goes into it, so much that can go wrong, and you need to have the money and the resources to fix
maintain it. Yeah.
That too. After it's running, you might run into something and you got to do some maintenance. You got to whatever you got to do. Like, it's insane. It's insane. I'm happy with my little 150 dB systems. They're a little bit easier.
I mean, to put it in context, to haul the cube around, not including what it costs us for the truck and trailer and all that, is realistically, once I'm paying out payroll and stuff, a $60,000 to $70,000 a year like endeavor.
Wow.
Which is why this time it's just coming to Vegas and staying in Vegas. I might take it to Slam every once in a while, but I am not looking for anywhere near as much responsibility as hauling it around the United States.
Right.
If people want to pay for that, and we want to like start a little kick, it's about $5,000 to $7,000 a trip.
Oh, I know. Just especially lugging something that around, whatever you're using to tow it. Yeah, that's it's insane.
It's just getting it there and back, and that's not us going or any of that. I always cover all that because it's good advertisement for us. It's not like we don't get advertisement from the Cube.
Right, but it's just
saying that I'm gonna sell 40 or 50 NXTs every time I take it somewhere, just to like break even on the revenue, not even on the profit, but on the revenue. Like, oh, come on, guys! I mean,
you're making history, and I'm sure there's a few of us that appreciate you making it happen.
I think having it in Vegas, and coming out to Vegas for a weekend isn't a lot for a lot of people. It's a cool, fun trip that we can do, and then everybody's going to be out here once or twice a year for big audio and car shows and stuff, anyways. So,
right.
Yeah.
I mean, you're in a good spot for it. They got SEMA there every year, right?
Yeah, SEMA and CES. So
yeah. Now, when's CES? I always get those two confused. When CES, or did that already happen? Okay, so that's like April, January, kind of.
January. Yeah.
January. So like that's coming up. Okay.
Second week of January usually.
Okay.
So.
That was the good old, 2013, Wasted Information CES.
Yes.
I'd like to go to one of those.
And
yes.
So funny story. Like, I don't think I've told you this, but we can't ever show the footage. But, so we tried to rectify that. We did a cool clip with the Cube and Aaron one year.
Really?
And for reasons that couldn't be edited out, we made Aaron made Aaron's body act in an inappropriate way that he did not recognize in the moment. And then we went back and we were real quick shooting this and then getting him on a plane and getting him back home. So we took a one shot and done. But he's like being cute about like, I guess there is information under 40 hertz.
Yeah.
And but the Cube almost sucked him in.
Oh my god!
I burnt 20 hertz flat. And it tried to suck him in, and there were some reactions that could not be posted on the internet.
Oh my god!
Especially since he's like trying to make up for a big blunder. So
it ain't gonna go over too well. No.
Yeah. Now Aaron had a good laugh about it. We had a good laugh about it internally at Kicker, and that never saw the light of day. It is in. I do have blackmail though, so if Aaron. He's got 48 hours to wire $50,000 to my.
I'm pretty good at keeping secrets. I got to see this at one point in my life.
No, yeah, it's it's not that inappropriate, but
Hey, he
you'll
might
see
be
it and you'll be like, oh, that's
Yeah.
why.
if anybody, he might be marrying me and Kayla one day. So if anybody, I might need to see that.
Aaron's an awesome guy. I love
He
him.
is.
He doesn't deserve half the shit that he catches. And when you find out about the story where they just left training from motorcycle training.
Motorcycles, exactly, and they don't play below 40 hertz. They don't play below 80, barely.
The amplifier. They were actually talking about that the amplifiers, they were having a roll off intentionally built into the amplifiers at 40 hertz. So he just fucking kind of just like, hey, I've been learning for a week and everything's been crammed into my head into this new place with all these lights in my face, and hello, who are you? Like, yeah.
It's tough, man. It really is.
I definitely empathize. So Aaron's a great guy. He works in training now, and he kills it. So he's a very good public speaker. And yeah, he does great.
He's peppy. I'll give him. He's peppy. He's peppy.
Yep.
He's awesome.
He's always
man.
happy to see us, and yeah, he's good people. So
absolutely, man.
Cool.
Hey, well, it's been over 2 hours, man. I'm gonna have you come on again and talk more. I know we can go all day on this stuff, man. I don't want to keep these guys hanging too long because they usually stay towards the end. And man, you've been awesome, Travis. And man, I can't wait to see the NXT4 and everything else, man, down the road.
Awesome. Cool. Well, we'll be in touch, man. And once we get that new welder in, I think we'll do a little shop view. And we actually have internet at the shop that doesn't look like a slideshow, which is why we didn't come from Ignited tonight. But yeah. So, but cool,
absolutely,
man.
Yeah.
I will talk to you later.
Hey, awesome, man. Thank you so much for hanging out, and I'll talk to you soon, man.
Thanks for having me on.
Hey, always, man. Be easy, buddy. All right, guys. Well, that's the end of the show. Appreciate you watching, man. 2 hours with Travis Young has been it's been an adventure, man. It's I cannot wait to see the other stuff coming down the road and really put this guy to the test, man. It's going to be awesome, man. 25 Cornut, longest Friday show yet. But you know what? Travis was talking really good stuff, and it's just like I had to throw everything up. And shoot, I guess we'll do the outro, and I'll see you guys in a minute. Be easy, guys. Stay living loud. I'll see you on Tuesday. Not everything is made in China. Double or Electro. Not everything's made in China. William, Bubba, Electro, El Fuego, William, you guys are awesome. And Cornut is coming with a 14.4 volt boost chat. Great show. Thank you so much, Cornut. Appreciate you guys hanging in. I know that was a long one. Thank you guys so much for watching. And again, I will see you Tuesday. And, I don't know, got some car audio Team SP Lounge stuff to do tomorrow, so you might see some extra videos. I'll see you guys next time. Be easy. Oh, Cornut just throwing in an extra one just in case. Got him! See you guys!